Hey everyone, it's your buddy, Admiral Teag. Welcome to our discussion of Season 1 of LANDMAN. I'm truly grateful you've taken some of your time to dive into this with us, and today we're kicking off what might be called What Happens in Midland, where we look at the world of big oil through the lens of Taylor Sheridan. Set in the gritty high stakes West Texas oil fields, Landman looks deeply into the boomer bust industry, centering on Billy Bob Thornton's Tommy Norris, point man and primary shot caller for M-Tex Oil and its day-to-day operations in an oil-rich but dangerous patch of desert crawling with losers, dreamers, and sicarios. We'll be breaking down the events of season 1 up to episode 6, and we did this discussion in the studio to keep things as focused and engaging as possible. So do me a favor, please hit those like and follow buttons, then grab a beverage of your choice, and let's get into what we hope is a compelling conversation. And with that, on to the video. With me today, I have my friends Radioactive, Resolute Germ, and Krimlon. Krimlon! You want to talk about your impression of Tommy Norris, where we end with the based confrontation at the wind farm?
I don't even remember where it was half the time, literally, right, even right now. You'd have to give a better description of the wind farm.
Okay, in the end of episode 3, we have a not really a confrontation, but a discussion. After we settle the wellhead explosion and give the bereavement money to the families, in a way that Rebecca, the lawyer sent out by the insurance company, has decided is the way she wants to play it. She works like with Monty and for Monty's insurance company, so she sort of undercuts the bereavement payment, saves the company a lot of money. She's shown as openly avaricious, and they go to the place where the van and the plane was hit by the oncoming oil truck, and there was the fire. And as they're talking, she looks up and she's like, "Oh, wow, there's a wind farm here. The oil company uses green energy." And Tommy is sort of triggered by this and goes, "We use alternative energy to guarantee distribution of oil no matter what happens. We're way off the grid here." And he has this like discussion with her about the green energy views that he has and how he sees it as sort of a scam. Then he moves on to his view of the petrochemical industry, and he points to the fact that every tire ever made that hauled the green so-called alternative energy windmill up there that's lubricated with petrochemical oil. Every tire ever made was made of petrochemicals, and the glasses you're wearing, the belt you're wearing, the hat you're wearing, everything we have on, everything in the car that we drove here in, we have a completely petrochemical dependent world in Tommy's view. He talks about 120 years of tracking towards it. Then she just kind of sort of backs off her views. She doesn't really go back at him. Like when he is triggered by the comment about green energy and gives his view on this is just shifting of the carbon footprint. On the other side of the coin, we have the petrochemical industry that may or may not be so great. And then what's really going to be a problem is we're going to run out in 50 to 75 years. So it's like he covers like the spectrum of beliefs, and he comes off very matter of fact about every aspect of it at the wind farm. The episode Hell Has a Front Yard is episode 3. And that's when he first meets Rebecca, the lawyer from the back east insurance company is the only way to put it.
You forgot one thing: propane and propane accessories.
It's very Texas.
Yes.
We don't see any propane, but it's very Texas. Do you want to talk about how you felt watching the first series episodes?
Oh well, I think it did have a good lead in. The first few episodes were pretty good. I liked how they introduced the characters. Um, I love Billy Bob's character probably the most. He's the uh, most irritable person out of the entire show, but he kind of comes off as someone that you kind of feel for with the level of stupidity that seems to be around him. Uh, That being his annoying ex-wife and his daughter, who seems to just not really be there. But I guess he's the typical good looking child that that's never seemed to have had to work very hard in her entire life. And then you've got the son with the son who's kind of not as good looking, obviously, but kind of almost seems like
Yeah.
he's kind of like the middle child syndrome types symptoms that he's got, where he just almost comes off as a little nerd that wants to hide away. I guess he kind of, I'm assuming through the entire show, he comes off as like he idolizes his father in a quiet way, at least from my perspective. Him wanting to kind of go his own way within the same industry, but wants to learn through like what his father's done.
Yeah, and the show doesn't do a great job of it, but the truth is he is like he's about to finish college, which he should have probably like stuck out
Correct.
those last few weeks and gotten the BA because he was there. The thing was he's bailed on like the grad school he would need to be the kind of landman his father wanted him to be. His father wanted him to be a Teflon landman. He knew that it was in Cooper's blood and he would end up doing it, but I think the deal was he was supposed to get like a serious geology degree so that he could be someone as like indispensable who could do his job mostly from behind a desk and not be at high risk in the oil industry like swinging a wrench. That
Well,
seems to be where the education was heading.
I think he just had a different ideology of the way he wanted to handle being in the industry. I mean, if you, I don't really want to kind of break through into the further or the later episodes, but it really kind of points out where his mindset is, and he doesn't want to be kind of stuck, you know, stuck at the hip with the company. He kind of wants to do his own thing. I think that's the way it starts off in the beginning, if I remember correctly. But then, further down the line, he actually starts coming up with a really good idea of how he's going to handle everything. And he comes off as a dumbass in the beginning, and slowly kind of, at least kind of starts to break through a little bit of self-appointed stupidity.
There's something going on with Cooper, but we'll circle back to that after we ask Radioactive. You didn't have a chance to chime in on the beginning of Landman. The first three episodes end with that confrontation at the wind farm that I discussed earlier and I sort of set up. How did you feel getting to the end of that, what I would consider the first act, when the show gets done dealing the characters out?
I was impressed with this show versus, I mean, where it is at this point versus where we were with some of the Yellowstone prequels that we watched. So I
This is
was
pretty
very
good,
skeptical.
yeah.
I was very skeptical about how this show would play out, but having seen the whole first season without getting too detailed into where we're at right now, yeah, overall I've been very impressed with this show.
Would you say it kind of does a good job of being, in a way, like Star Trek, where we have things that are notable, things that are, worth talking about, but they're observed on, not opinionated about? Like at the wind farm, he goes through three different energy scenarios and then sort of like shrugs off the idea that we never really invested in nuclear power as a missed opportunity in what like sounds like a soliloquy for the human race, and what also in a scene that could be billed as Road Warrior the prequel.
I would say this show has been far more objective and in terms of its understanding of reality versus a lot of other shows out there.
He's not.
And
There's no agenda here. He just wants to run he is a great character that way.
well, I
He
think I
wants
think
to.
it also points to the fact that the writers, producers, the whole team that Sheridan has put together far better has done a far better job on their homework than what we have seen in some of his other shows.
You're
So
basically saying that Taylor Sheridan has basically allowed us to make up our minds about human history and the use of oil, not really moralizing to us, and proceeding with stuff that doesn't really offend our common sense to sort of introduce these characters that are, I find, pretty interesting in the way they interact as they try to get rich or die trying with this oil.
Well, yeah, it's far more realistic, I think, with what we're seeing here.
All right. And so welcome and welcome to all of you. Hit those like and follow buttons if you're still with us. And we're going to bring you into the characters around Tommy. Here's Billy Bob himself in character about to do a scene. As you can see, this is the Tommy Norris that we know. And here's Billy Bob. This is what you call a guy who's a good actor. This person does not show up in the Landman show. Whatever it is going on here, we don't have to put up with that. This is subdued for Billy Bob. We saw some pictures of him where he was looking really strange. Billy Bob and his fashion, weird stuff. We finally got a line on this one. He is 60. Okay, so Landman is 60. Billy Bob, though, shockingly, is 70. And there was the first red carpet picture from season 1 that left us all stunned that Billy Bob dresses kind of insanely bad for a 70-year-old man.
That's from season 2.
Is this the premiere for season 2? Okay.
Yeah.
He dresses kind of insanely bad for a 70-year-old man. It's like I don't know what to say about it. Except that you get this portrayal of Tommy Norris is very convincing, and Billy Bob Thornton he's right up there, doing some of the best work of his career in, I guess, what's going to be a series that's intended to continue differently from other Taylor Sheridan stuff. Germ, as we go into episode 4, how did you feel about the story as it kind of came to an end? The first series of stories. In episode 3, we sort of round off the beginning of the story. All the characters are in play, and we show them starting to interrelate.
Yeah, good interaction with some of them. We start to get developments on Cooper, which turns out to be, I think, one of the more interesting parts of the series, and really shows his aggression and ambition for what he wants.
He has a bridle on the aggression. He can control himself, but if you give him a really hard time and force him to, it seems like he wrestled or played football at college, because he takes down a couple of people with some grappling and tossing stuff where he just throws people around or subdues them. So he knows what he's doing. Like, he might have wrestled or something at the school, and he can take care of himself. He's no wimp. But let's give people a look at Cooper and talk a little bit about him. Cooper, son of Angela and Tommy, is played by Jacob Laughlin. There he is. This is, I think, right after the explosion.
Yes, I believe so.
Cooper is okay. It's kind of weird that he didn't see through just getting the BA and come to work that much later. It seemed to me like they really just wanted to inject some urgency in a character. So that part of it not making sense aside, his idea is he will be a landman. He will get his hands on the money. Looks like protege to his father is where it's going to end up, because right now every crew they put him on, the first crew didn't work out so good. They die in the wellhead explosion while he's getting a wrench. Talk to me about Cooper.
Well, he is, I'd say, a perfect example of his father's son. Ambitious as hell, knowledgeable. He does have a few big blind sides that I think are going to come up to bite him later on, maybe season 2. But overall, very well-rounded character.
Yeah, Jacob Laughlin nails it on this one. I think he's pretty good too. Krimlon, what were your thoughts on Jacob Laughlin and the character of Cooper?
I think he's a fairly intelligent character. I think he's just very young and naive. The way he handled the girl that clearly he had a crush on, and she has. I don't know whether or not she had feelings for him in the beginning, but later on she starts developing it. I think there's just a lot of naivete there, which led to him having his own problems.
So
that
here's the
could have,
deal.
if you were older, probably would have been able to avoid with like the plague.
Yeah, I don't know if this is the smartest play for Cooper. He goes out the first couple of days in the field with a crew that's Michael Pena's character is the head of the crew. And there's something wrong with one of the wellheads. They tell Cooper, who's the bottom man on the totem pole as far as their crew goes, to run back to the truck and get them a pipe wrench. And while he's there, they're still like hitting this like stuck valve with two pipe wrenches, one against the other, metal on metal. We hear a hiss. We know there's a leak. They hit the wrench again. The natural gas goes up. There's an explosion. It knocks Cooper like into the truck, I think, and he's kind of out of it for a minute. And the next thing you know, it's just like everyone on the crew is dead except him. And on that particular crew, they were all related. It was like brothers and cousins. When he gets oriented and figures out what's going on, there's nothing but fire. The wellhead is fully engulfed in flames. The three guys who were messing with the valve are all dead. And this is Michael Pena's cousin's wife. So now widow. She's one of the people who's left without a husband and without any future by the wellhead explosion. This is the deal. You make in the patch in Midland, Texas, where this oil is, you make about $200,000 a year, and you get to pay off a house in that area and be relatively financially secure and take care of like your family and send your kids to college with a bad track record in life, which is why people are surprised that Cooper's out there. They keep saying that most of the people in the patch are losers or dreamers, and that's the words that Tommy uses to describe it. And Michael Pena talks about it too. He's like, for an ex-con who did like a bid for like stealing cars or something like that, you get $178,000 a year, and that'll get you by. And now shut up and go get a pipe wrench out of the truck. And as he's running to go do that, they blow up this wellhead. That leads to a bunch of settlements, and one of the things that happens is Ariana is one of the widows. He meets her when he goes and pays his respects to the family. He's getting a lot of shit for this. He gets beat up right away in camp by some people. He kind of fights them to a standstill. They're like affiliated to and semi-related to some of these people. Does anybody know what the deal is with Elvio and the other people? Are they cousins with? Yeah.
Well, they
They're
see
douchebag
him.
They're
Well,
not.
he's
like
the
Michael
only
Pena.
survivor of everyone that died. That all of a sudden now he's starting to hang out with the widow. So I mean, as
She's
far as they're
widowed
going,
for days.
yeah, and it's immediately onto a new guy. So they all get the assumption that she's already onto a new guy. So it's already not looking good for him.
He got a lot of shit from everybody back at the place where everybody lives. The company MTEX, owned by Monty, has just like a small desert village where you just have a bunch of houses in a row, like very small, very functional, that you just like, it's like a bungalow that you live in, and some of them are nicer than others. Yeah, it's a man camp, basically. Whatever you want to call it. It's like a few miles outside of the town, the fictional town of Midland. There's probably a real town of Midland. It's probably based on the real town of Midland, but no one real town has all this drama going on. So, it's Taylor Sheridan's Midland, Texas. But she can't get ahead of the Vills. She can't figure out what's going on. And it's weird because she's more worldly than we think. This character is sympathetic. She and the coffee lady are like the two nice people in this show. Ariana is left with, the show tells us she doesn't have anyone to talk to. Nobody really helps her out. The other people who are in her family are more isolated from American culture than she is. Like, they don't speak any English. The people who work on the oil crew, they just work on the oil crew all day. No one's telling her what to do with some of these offers. Everyone's being offered a bunch of money to shut up and not sue again in the future. And that's a subplot that's going on with Tommy, who kind of is pulling the strings behind everything. And managing the part of this oil-rich patch outside of Midland that is controlled by MTEX, keeping the Sicarios at bay and dealing with the other oil companies. And now the government, and in the first 3 episodes, we helicoptered in his family. So Cooper, his son, I guess we said about as much as we can about him, except that he's good-hearted in a way that he doesn't have to be. And also, like, his parents breaking up, we get the time frame, it's 10 years before this. He was more affected by it than Ainsley. Ainsley is just immature and really weird. Cooper is really weird and like a loner. And he doesn't know how to act or do anything except like he's in like a very focused mode. He's just a very serious guy. When he was in school, I imagine all he did was study and, wrestle and like had a few friends. And chicks would have had to pursue him. He's not the kind. He's like Tommy in the sense that he won't say hello to anybody. He'll just nod to them. He's like very few words, but Ariana gets him to start helping her out right away, and he like is able to basically explain to her what's going on with the death benefits and some of these insurance things and a couple of things going on with the state of Texas that happens when people die that she couldn't figure out for herself. And he tells her, how to like basically stay out of the poorhouse and keep her assets while they try to figure out what's going on. And he tells her, sell the work truck, hold on to your house, pay your mortgage, do this. You have 9 months of insurance left or whatever her situation might have been. And she gets oriented to what's going on by him. I thought she was really well played, and I liked Ariana as one of the only nice people in the show. Paulina Chavez, thoughts on Ariana from the panel?
I think she's a great actress. I think I liked the character. I think there's going to be a little bit more growth going into the next season, obviously. But I think so far, you're right. She's by far one of the most stable characters out of all of them. She's got a pretty good head on her shoulders, other than the fact that she did get Cooper involved.
This is the one really like weird thing she's doing. Everyone gets one weird out of character thing, I guess, to do. She just didn't know who else to reach out to. The reason
Doesn't
she
seem
knows
like family
Cooper,
helped with that.
No,
Yeah,
it's all of her husband's family.
Yeah,
That's
all
the
the people
problem.
that should have been helping out with the kid were not there for her like they should be.
Right. And the only reason she knew to call Cooper was because he did the right thing. He showed up anyway, despite some of them really being angry at him and some of them beating him up. He showed up with flowers to their house to say he was really sorry and that they were nice to him and they were good people. And this wins him like the respect of the women in the family. But like Michael Pena's widow or his mother, whoever that might have been, she was not acculturated, and it was pretty clear that like Ariana and the guys on the work crew were the only ones who spoke English. Like Michael Pena's mom could speak a bit of English. She was able to communicate with him a little bit, but a lot of the talking at that place in Spanish, and Taylor Sheridan just doesn't do subtitles for Spanish. You either understand it or you don't. And she is I agree that she is a pretty great actress being able to sell this, because this is possibly the hardest character in the show to sell. Radioactive, nice human being, and non-mean person, Ariana. What did you think of this character and how she came to know Cooper?
Well, my take is that he shouldn't have gotten involved with her, certainly that early, because she was in mourning, and it's just going to lead to trouble for him later on, is what I would take it at this point of the show.
Yeah, we make it a few weeks into this relationship, and it's still platonic, but it's clear she really cares about him, and he doesn't have anyone else.
Well, yeah, that's true.
She's a little jealous when she sees Ainsley, too. She's like, who are you?
Yeah, it's somewhat of a perfect storm brewing here, so to speak.
Yeah. I also thought that she was a really good actress being able to sell this show.
Oh, yeah, as far as an
this
actress
character
is concerned, she's doing a great job. The actress, that is. But I'm talking about the character. The character.
The character is the toughest character to sell, honestly, in my opinion. I understand Landman. I understand Angela, who we'll talk about in a minute before we talk about Ainsley, and I can understand Monty. I understand Cammy. This is a person who's like outside of someone I understand. I have a hard time understanding a single Latina female Mexican widow with a 3-month-old baby. Like I have no context for this in my life. So, and also her character is doing things that are not really the best choices for not making waves. Although it seems like the show paints her as having no choice but to talk to Cooper, who has everything but a college degree and can get by in the world of forms and business much better than her, who, whatever her level of education is, cannot understand or deal with all the red tape that comes in when her husband dies. And he explains to her all the letters that she's gotten from the various organizations and cleans up her house, which has gone to hell in a couple of days because I guess her husband was never home enough to do any landscaping, or they never hired a landscaper. And this draws the attention of Elvio and his buddy, who are dicks on the team for another part of the patch. And that crew is related to the crew that dies, but they are not benevolent like Michael Pena's part of the crew. They have real like low life habits. They pull guns on people. They talk a lot of shit, and they aren't very cool. The members of the second gang, the people who are
they
left
also
behind
blame him. They blame him for the deaths of that entire crew. Like,
But
why
the
is he the
show's-
only one surviving? So it's
Well,
almost like they blame him for it.
To be clear,
show
it's
tells
the
us to
crew
expect
members, but not the leader of that crew. The leader of the crew was welcoming. Just to be clear.
Correct.
Yeah.
that is true. It was the middle guys in the tier. That guy was welcoming. They are not cool with this, and at one point when Cooper is over there helping her out, and she's just taking care of her baby right in front of him, and this is something he's never seen before, and that's the fascination for him. Because his mother, and we'll talk about Angela in a moment. We did talk about her for part 1, but we get more on Angela. His mother is more like the worst influence in his life, and has, if anything, that's why Cooper doesn't talk to many people. It's because his mother is Angela, who is just one of the more shallow people in the show, but she's making a bid to be less shallow because I guess she figured out that the only time she was in love was with Tommy, so she's moving on from the money and taking another chance with Landman. But Cooper here, he's just a good-hearted person, and she just has problems getting by, and we end up with a confrontation where they again pull a gun on Cooper, and there's another confrontation where he physically gets the better of them, and he's down for this, but this has now reached the point where it's real dangerous. And that night they jump him in his trailer and they put him in the hospital, and that really sets things in motion. Episode 3 and 4 are mostly about these two, and we spend time with other characters from Landman's world and Landman, but it's mostly about these two. And the other character who comes into the show and starts to come into her own will be Rebecca Falcone, lawyer from back east. Guys, Rebecca Falcone has been sent by liability lawyers to work with MTEX to find out who's responsible for what happened when that oil tanker crashed into that Learjet, leaving a bunch of dead people and a story that had to be explained to the FAA and the NTSB, but really nobody else, because they pushed the local authorities around except the marshal who's in their pocket. She comes out to handle everything to do with that, and the wellhead explosion then comes under her liability stuff too, because I guess the idea is she represents the fact that the bank now is like looking more closely at Monty. Monty's leveling up as an oil guy. He's not as wildcat as he used to be. His organization is starting to become, number 20 in America or something. He's moving up from number 100 though. He's in a gaggle of guys who are all tied to having some influence. He got in early on the patch. We hear it from Tommy. He bought a bunch of it in 1991, and he started side drilling and doing some horizontal stuff that wasn't quite legal right away. And he was like definitely doing some stuff to like suck oil out of other people's parts of the patch and just doing the same thing that everyone else does because everyone's being unprincipled in this area. All the oil barons are taking all the oil they can, and all of them have to spend some lives. So because there's a lot of liability in this, maybe Monty makes it, maybe Monty doesn't. It seems like Rebecca is there to see if MTEX is going to make it and be allowed to keep dealing with this insurance company. And also, if maybe MTEX needs to throw Tommy under the bus, because that ultimately would be Tommy's job. Tommy was once Monty. He had his own company. It didn't work out. And now Monty is at a point that Tommy reached and didn't get past. That's what the show basically is telling us. Monty is established just a little bit further down the road of being wealthy than Tommy got. And Tommy was able to buy his own George Strait concert for him and his wife personally. She's sort of now becoming like this presence where she's not as much of a danger to Monty as she is to Tommy, but she can put Tommy in jail and put Monty out of business. Rebecca Falcone flies into town, and she is now all over every bad thing that's happening to MTEX and their operation. Guys, what did you think of Rebecca, recipient of Tommy's based, hungover-fueled talk at the wind farm, where he basically explains to her like the three different alternatives to how he sees the energy market and how they all lead to we're going to run out of oil and it's going to be a big problem anyway?
Well, she's definitely a very intelligent character, but as far as real world intelligence, I'd say kind of subpar. I think
She's
it's kind of pointed out when she basically walks directly into a rattlesnake at that point. I think that when that scene happens, it's meant to kind of show the lack of real world experience or understanding of how the real world works.
Rebecca Falcone gets off a private jet at the middle-sized airport in Midland, doesn't know that you need a luxury car to fit in Midland. Then when she's out in the field, she walks out there in a pair of flip-flops and jeans or whatever she's wearing, and there's rattlesnakes everywhere, and Tommy has to rescue her from one. So it's pretty dramatic how she doesn't navigate the business or the fieldwork side of her job too well, but she is a really well-accredited lawyer. Germ, you were going to say something? Go ahead.
She's a well-accredited lawyer. She is intelligent, but she is as shallow as anyone in the show.
Very
She
shallow.
doesn't respect anything to do with the business. She doesn't respect Tommy. She doesn't respect anybody. She is as bad as Tommy's wife and daughter.
Tommy's wife and daughter are pretty shallow, but they do not possess the killer instinct and extreme. Well, they have the killer instinct, but extreme cunning. She is very smart. She is very accredited. She's going to be wealthy whether she works here or not. In fact, these people are probably going to cause her nothing but problems. If I know Taylor Sheridan, they'll have killed somebody and she'll know about it pretty soon. But right now, she's sort of trying to make sense of the wellhead explosion and the plane crash. And the one thing I'll say is she makes the adjustment pretty well. Because in episode 4, she has now the one trait that they layer on that we find out is fun is she's voyeuristic and slightly sadistic. She has a big victory in the plane crash negotiations, doing a better job than corporate lawyer Nathan would have done. And she's real cutthroat. She sort of entraps and bullshits the other lawyers. And we don't feel bad for them. They're all the same kind of guys. And she's just even better at it than they are. She turns the table on these old school oil man sort of lawyers and really just body slams them. And she's dishonest while she does it, and maybe does a little bit of stolen valor, because when they make fun of her last name, she tells them that her father is, a serviceman who died in service of their fighting for their right to have freedom of speech. And Tommy's like, that was pretty impressive, and my respects to your father. She's like, I made that shit up, and so at that point, Tommy has to laugh, and like, as impressed with her as he is, she's young enough to be his daughter, but he asked her to go have a beer with him. The bar in town is pretty funny. It's a sports bar, like any sports bar. It's Texas and Midwestern themed. And while they're there, they run into his family, and we find out that he has the most sadistic ex-wife, and the most shallow daughter. And Falcone they're like, oh, do you want to join us for dinner? And he's like, oh, I'll be pleased if you didn't. She's like, oh, I'm not missing this. And she has a great time watching him squirm through one of 2 family dinners that he has to sit through in episodes 4 through 6. The first one is when the whole family, except Cooper, collides at the sports bar in town, where Ainsley continues her strange eating rituals. And what can I say? Angela, played by Allie Larder, is nothing but gluttonous. This collision of all the women in his life at the sports bar, it would seem too convenient, but we know that this is a total one-horse town, and it's the only place in town to get a beer. And she doesn't like him at all. She shoots him down totally, but she's like, we kind of have to work together, and I don't know anyone else here, so I'm going to get a beer anyway, so I might as well listen to your crazy rant, madman. You're a pretty interesting madman. And that's when Ainsley and Angela approach, and the first of 2 family dinners happens. Here they are at the bar. Angela thinks that he's, quote, cheating on her. They're divorced and she's still married. And she goes, over to confront them with Ainsley. And the conversation is, you're cheating on me? You got a side piece? And she's like, Daddy, do you have any other children? Ainsley is a total airhead. And he's like, Tommy's like, to have a side piece, I'd have to be with you, which I'm not. And no, you're my only kids. You and Cooper are like, you're my only daughter, is what he says. Rebecca's like, there is no way this broken down, crazy old cowboy and me are together. Who are you weird people? And they're like, I'm his ex-wife. And Ainsley, is like, well, I'm his daughter. And, they're like, oh, you got to join us for dinner. And he's like, no, please don't. And they do anyway. Let's talk about the conversation at the diner where she talks about we get Angela's George Strait concert story. Germ, what did you think of this?
It's a nice little story. It does a lot to humanize Tommy and his family. It does nothing for Rebecca. As so far in the series, she's essentially nothing. She's just something for plot to bounce off of.
She's basically said that she wants to make money and that she has her own way of getting off. It's a little lipstick-sized device that takes batteries and doesn't ever talk to her. So she's like basically in a relationship with herself and money. But when she meets Angela, Angela tells this story about Tommy told her they have to fly somewhere. It's a big deal. And then the plane had to land somewhere. It was unplanned. They get off the plane. He goes, well, we might as well spend the night. And then when they get to the hotel, it turns out that he has like a whole floor booked. And there's a George Strait concert going on that's just for them. And they get to dance just, the 2 of them to him playing for just them. And he does this whole show. And he's like, darling, I'm going to make half your dream come true. Because she also wanted to do George Strait. Who would be well advised to stay away from Angela. And Angela does a good job of coming off as just the least likable, never cool, most shallow, facile, money-hungry person ever. And like you said, Tommy seems human. And Rebecca's just watching this and sort of enjoying Tommy's pain as Ainsley just acts like out of it and almost oxygen starved. Germ, dinner with the Norrises.
Well, Ainsley really wasn't part of that scene because she was just bored because she lived that. That was like 10 years ago. That's how they broke up.
It happened. Yeah, she says like 3 months after that, the market tanked out and Tommy lost
Yeah.
all his money because he was overextended. Probably from shit like
Yeah,
that.
he was overextended. He turned to the bottle, and that's something his daughter just doesn't want to remember.
Ainsley sort of zones out. You're right. I hadn't remembered that. Dinner with the Norrises at the bar. Krimlon, what did you think of this scene?
Oh, I thought it was hilarious. It was definitely
Yeah,
a
it
funny
was.
trap. I do think I'm gonna have to agree with Radioactive on this one. That is basically Rebecca collecting intel. uh, Basically wanted to see how messed up this poor guy's life is.
And enjoying his pain. Let's not for
I,
a
th- I
moment think that she didn't enjoy his pain.
Oh, she was definitely enjoying it. I think both characters are fairly similar. I think she's basically a younger version of him, whether or not she wants to admit it or not. She's just as greedy, just as straightforward. She's willing to attack anyone that gets in her way. They're both fairly similar. They're willing to lie to get what needs to be done.
Right, and
That's
Tommy might have been a good old boy, but he was not a cool guy when he was running the show either.
exactly. I mean, and that's probably the reason why. In all honesty, I think that's the reason why he asked her to go get a beer. I don't know whether or not he was asking to ask her out, whether or not it was
I think
that
he
or
respected her game because she ate the other
exactly.
lawyers alive, and he's just like, well, we're predators. You're top legal dog, and I'm top landman. We're going to have a working relationship. I'd rather see it coming than get it stabbed in the chest and get stabbed in the back.
And that's the way I kind of saw it as also. What were you saying, Germ?
I think it's more he's trying to follow Nate's advice and get her on his side.
I think so too.
Yeah, he would rather see it coming and get stabbed in the chest than stabbed in the back. He doesn't trust her. He doesn't really like her, but he does respect her now, and he's accepted that dealing with her is a fact of life because in episodes 1 through 3, her mandate went from to find out about the plane crash to deal with the wellhead explosion as well, because the insurance company is wondering if Monty knows what the hell he's doing, to the point that they're putting like a $300,000 a year lawyer on the case, and she's doing a little better than Tommy, money wise. Although Tommy's doing well enough to keep the dogs at bay for what seems to be get whacked by the mob or end up in jail levels of money and fraud. And here she is by that wind farm. This is Rebecca at the wind farm. Radioactive. We were talking about the dinner back at the bar. What did you think of when all the women in Tommy's life collide at that bar?
Well, I'm with Krimlon on this one. It was funny. We knew
It
what
was very
gonna
funny.
happen.
I agree.
We could see what was being set up there, and he's just squirming. And Rebecca is enjoying the whole thing. Actually, all the three women commiserate together, so to speak.
They take turns like teeing off on him. Angela thinks that there's a few things about Tommy that could be a little better. Ainsley sort of has her eye roll, oh daddy moment. And Falcone doesn't really chime in so much. It's like, oh, believe me, I know exactly how frustrating this gentleman can be. Because she's just been dealing with him for a couple of days, and she's a little full of it too. When
I think the important thing here is that they're setting up somewhat of a bond between those three women. Like, they resonate with each other, despite the fact that they're from totally different parts of the country and education levels and everything. They seem to get along great.
Yeah, Ainsley seems destined to be washing out in her first year. She's going to tech. We don't know which tech. I'm going to assume Texas Tech.
She's actually, she's going for the classic MRS degree is what she's really hoping to get.
She says she wants a degree in philanthropy. That's how little she knows.
Yes. Philanthropy. Yeah. Just like her mother.
Yeah.
And the guy she's trying to get over on says to her, like, I don't think you can get a degree in that. And she's just like, I don't know. My daddy said he'll pay for it. So she seems destined to spend like 6 years in college. She's going to find a husband there is what she's going to do. And she thinks that
Exactly.
husband's going to be an NFL starter. She doesn't
Mommy's
want a
little girl.
linebacker. She doesn't want a wide receiver. She wants a quarterback and only a quarterback. She wants a starting quarterback and only a starting quarterback. And this seems destined to go terribly. She is going to end up with a Ryan Leaf.
I don't know. The guy she meets seems to be okay.
He is okay, and if he is smart, he'll get rid of her. Just to give everybody an idea of the talent level here, this is Rebecca Falcone, Kayla Wallace out of character. So very different look, very different looking. I'm going to say it seems to me she's a good actress because she's emanating warmth here and she's lovely and is very, very, very desirable looking. Whereas as Falcone, she's like kind of sexless, kind of almost androgynous in her outlook, at least through episode 6, and she just kind of talks like a guy. Seems to be like the actress and the character come across quite differently. I always like to throw the red carpet picture in there for the sake of continuity. So in episode 4 is called The Sting of Second Chances. And Cooper and Tommy are both on the same path, except the second chance for Cooper is another crew. This crew is a little bit different than the first one. The first choice was Michael Pena's crew. And then the next choice is he tries to place him with a crew of people he trusts. And
He gets his boss's crew.
now, Cooper, he's on a similar arc to his father where his second chance is a new crew run by Boss. He's got more of a code and he's a lot more honorable than the other people out there in the patch. Whatever his debt to society is behind him far enough now that he has no more problems legally. He likes working out there, at least as far as we know of. He likes being out there. He's been out there a long time, and he's the kind of guy who'll do things that are a little weird, like we find out in the first episode that you're never supposed to do anything but order the easiest coffee to make. And for whatever reason, Cooper, who's a little soft and a college boy, from our hot coffee lady, the hottest chick in town, he orders like a latte, and everyone gets on him because like that's something that bankers drink, and no one makes it. No one who goes to work before 10 a.m. ever gets a latte. You order your coffee black and you deal with it. And so that is in episode 1. And episode, I think it's 3, when he goes out with the new crew, the first thing they do is Boss orders the most complicated drink of all time, something I've never heard of, some kind of weird frap. And she's like, okay. And like, she does her little dance and tease while she makes the coffee. And I guess that's he doesn't care. He's going to pay $100 for a cup of coffee is the way it's coming off. And he doesn't give a shit. And while everyone else starts honking their horns, he jumps out of his truck and tells like 200 wildcat oil riggers to go fuck themselves and that he'll beat down anybody who has any problem with him. He tells all these oil field workers, first come, first served. I'm dishing out beatings. That was like a character moment for him. It was just pretty wild, but he was just like, he lives by his own rules and he could give a shit about what people think you're supposed to do at the coffee place. And it looked like he was just like, this can't happen every morning. Something sets Boss off and he decides to antagonize people that day. I guess he's trying to tell people, I've got the boss's son and I'm going to, tell everybody right now I'm the big dog. I'm marking my territory first thing in the morning. I'm ordering a frap. What did you guys think of like the wild encounter at the coffee shop? Guys, the coffee shop's in a strip mall. People drive through it and get their coffee on their way out to the patch to do their oil field work.
I'm getting my frap too. She better be bouncing.
In the first truck, we're told only order your coffee black and get it as fast as you can. And as soon as it takes them more than like 90 seconds, everyone online starts flashing their lights and honking because it's pre-dawn. And boss orders the most complicated thing. He's been on this line every day for a couple of years, maybe 10 years, who knows? And they got to know him. This can't be every day. So he provokes the other Wildcat truckers. Is he making a statement to protect Cooper, or that Cooper's on his crew now, so nobody better give him a hard time? That's how it
I've
seemed
got
to me.
I got a better question on this one. So looking back at what you just stated right there, just get it fast, get it blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
It kind of makes me wonder if there's a little bit of subtext to this, where everyone let's just get it fast with any girl and get it done and over with. Whereas it's more of just what he's wanting to do is, I want a frappe. I want something more special and takes a little bit longer. It just makes me wonder if that's where Taylor Sheridan was going with that.
We find out later that that boss is very crazy about his wife, though. He's very happily married. So this is just something he just wants to mess with her because he likes watching her make coffee, and he's ready to confront the other oil field guys. So, Germ, question goes to you next. Do you think he was making a statement and calling off the other oil field workers, or do you think that this is something he does every day? I mean, this seemed pretty out of the ordinary. It was pretty controversial when he held up the line.
Hey, just sometimes you need to see a pretty girl bounce.
Simple as that. Okay. Germ, I'm sorry, Radioactive, you're next up. What did you think about his decision to provoke the other people who work the oil patch by getting the most complicated order you can get at the coffee shop? Something we know you're not supposed to do.
Well, I think he's just asserting himself as the alpha amongst all those guys. Because everybody there that was in line was basically from the same, the company grounds. So he's just flexing.
This is the MTEX part of the patch. This is the coffee shop that the MTEX guys go to, and everybody knows there is no office. This is the closest thing they have to it, and he's just like, "Don't mess with me, and don't mess with my helper." Seemed to be. I thought he deliberately provoked them, one, because he wanted to see her dance, like Germ said, but I also think he was like, having been the person who interceded to stop things from escalating the first time Cooper got jumped, he actually, as a friend of Tommy's, and we find out him and Tommy are really tight, he's just like making a statement. I thought he was jumping out to tell the other guys, "Don't mess with Cooper, he's under my care." That was my translation.
He may just be reinforcing it because be a little controversial for him to take Cooper onto his crew. He just needs to remind everybody who's top dog in that man camp.
He knows exactly how to be an oil field worker, and he knows exactly how to be the chief of that crew. Part of it is Cooper, who has brought a lot of this onto himself by deciding he's going to date or just hang around with a lot conspicuously Ariana during this period of her life. He has like a heart of gold. And I guess, is this supposed to be the kind of person that Tommy was, who would bring his wife to see George Strait before even knowing what Angela was like? Is this that, like, is he showing like, because he's really like, Tommy isn't this nice of a person. These are these are the three nicest people in the show. These two people and her. These are the nice people in this show. The coffee lady, she's not evil, and these two people. Everyone else, it's debatable.
I think this is to show a difference between him and Tommy, because Tommy he could do the materialistic stuff like the George Strait concert, but actually sit down and take care of a woman was a little bit beyond him. And at this point, that's all Cooper could do. So that's what Cooper is doing.
He said that he sticks around and does all that stuff because he doesn't know how else to help, and he wants to do what he can. He feels bad. Basically, Tommy is moving throughout his day, and it's almost like everyone is a vignette united by when they need to talk to Tommy and where Tommy is. At any given time, Tommy's driving a 300-mile circle from the patch back to the rent house where he lives with Dale and Nathan and now his family. They just move in. The last thing her ex-husband pays for is all the furniture in the in the rent house. Nathan is not happy, and Dale's just as good natured. He's going to deal with it. Cooper has to step up and do the job of the guy who gets hurt. He's like 200 feet in the air working on some stuff when his father shows up, and he's like, "Boss, why is he up there?" And he's like, "This wasn't my idea, but he's working out just fine. He knows what he's doing." So at least we find out that he can handle himself out there. He can deal with this kind of rough work. This part of the patch that comes into the story in 4, 5, and 6 is they've got a new area or new technology, and they're going to go after some more oil. And these older wells from the 90s, some of them are still viable, some of them aren't. And some of them get reworked, and some of them are going to get fracked. And he's part of the team that's doing that for a little while before he gets reassigned. And I think everyone's on the new project by the end of episode 6. The relationship with Ariana comes back to haunt him, even though it's still platonic. Cooper gets attacked by the cousins of the first crew and beat up really bad in his bungalow in the company town. He's in the hospital, unconscious, messed up. Tommy gets the call in the middle of his day. He's heading over to the hospital to try to check on Cooper. Angela is flying into town sideways again. Ainsley has referred to him as a loser, and then the next thing she says is, "This is going to mess up my first weekend out." So Ainsley just not the most sympathetic character. Cooper gets beat down by Ariana's in-laws, and again, there's another collision of everyone in Tommy's life at the hospital where his ex-wife, his daughter, his unconscious son's like love interest, who's him and her just haven't figured it out yet, but it's heading that way, and Dale just all end up colliding at this hospital where Cooper is recovering from an attack. Like, this is the second time we've been to the hospital. The doctor is terrified of Tommy. He doesn't bother to try to tell him anything about, Angela freaks out right away and has to leave the room. Tommy tells her, take a pill, calm down, come back when you get it together. Ainsley, she just doesn't seem to have any empathy for him. And Tommy tells him, you got to think about whether you want to do this. This is a big deal. But also, like, my LANDMAN job now comes into this. These employees beat up another employee. I've got to contain it right now. We always have overlapping law enforcement in Taylor Sheridan. One of the sheriffs is working with him and wants to keep it on the down low and handle everything Tommy's way. And what they do is they drop in on the two people who were responsible, the key players in the beatdown. They drop in on them in the company town. Tommy shows up with some cops, with boss, with some guys who are kind of badasses, and they just beat the crap out of the two guys who beat up Tommy's son Cooper. And they're like, "We want to know everyone who was involved in this." So I guess if you're a peripheral person, it's going to go badly. You're going to get fired. You're going to get beat up. This guy, he got beat up. He's going to get beat up some more. His partner, his cousin, also gets beat up. He's going to get beat up some more. They get the names out of him, and Tommy sits down and just says, "You're going away. Sheriff's going to take a look at this place in a little while. I bet you he finds some stuff here. I bet you, you maybe even look like a distributor. And, when you grabbed my son and you, closed the door behind you, that was kidnapping. So that's 30 years. I'm going to core out the middle of your life. And then when that's over with and you move on, if you ever come back here, I'll end it." And they're just looking at him, and one guy's cowering and one guy's sort of glowering defiantly, but sounds like that's going to stick to me. And kind of a vulgar display of power by Tommy. Was it personal, or does everyone who pulls a bunch of felonies get the same treatment? Let's start with Germ.
No matter who it was, you have to establish the order to their little society there. You can't have one worker beating the hell out of another and taking them out of work.
I
That
believe
hurts the
beat up
touch.
and fired for it would be what would have happened ordinarily, but Tommy's character will be 90 when the jail sentence is over. He plays a 60-year-old.
He's turning anyone over to the sheriff. And there are, in a situation like that, they may not get the kidnapping charge, but they're getting.
And that guy was in violation of his parole, so anything he did was going to be a big deal anyway. And who knows if
Yeah,
the cousin
and that-
gets out of jail or not.
That applies to pretty much anyone on that crew. So he just wouldn't have enjoyed it as much.
Oh, I think that there was a personal aspect to it, but let's go with Radioactive. What do you think? Is that standard company treatment, or was there a personal aspect to it too?
Oh, it was a little bit of both, obviously. But, you know, he has his understanding with the county sheriff, and there's a bit of a delay in the sheriff arriving at the campment, and things happened. Things got straightened out.
They took care of it their way. You go to the patch, you're playing by their rules. That'll do it for part 2 of LANDMAN Season 1 discussion. I want to thank my panelists and, of course, you for your precious time. Please hit the like and follow if you haven't already, and we'll be back next week with more about LANDMAN Season 1, getting ready for Season 2 in just a few weeks. I'm Admiral Teag, and I'll see you out there.